Here I am, Thursday morning, September 21st, 2023, about to head out for my second day on the Ohio to Erie Trail. I rode from Cleveland to my house outside Marshallville yesterday. It was wonderful to be able to see my wife and my kids and get a meal here and sleep in my own bed. But the time has come where I'm going to move on, and the next few days I'm going to be off the grid or on a different grid or whatever. I am loaded up with 38 pounds of trailer necessities and unnecessities. Confession time? I've only ever done like one other 60 plus mile ride before all of this, and it was didn't intend to go that far, and I really thought that like my 40 some mile training rides would be an acceptable preparation or practice. The way though my last 20 miles went yesterday, we'll see. Like I have mentioned before, the only way out is through. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Just take each hill one at a time. You know, walking is not the end of the world. I really don't want to. I'd like to believe I'm better prepared than that, but only one way to find out. For those of you familiar with trucker parlance, I am going to miss bobtailing, riding with the trailer behind me. That's going to be a bit of a drag, both literally and figuratively. Oh, a couple of notes I had from yesterday, like not that it really matters, but thoughts that I wanted to make sure to include. I'm trying to keep track of the number of times I've been lost. So far, I am up to two times I've had to turn around. So that doesn't include times I had to like stop and reference a map, but 2 times I went the wrong way and had to turn it around, pick a different path. Get too far out of my way either time. So far I'm going to count that as a win. And the number of ice creams consumed on the trail, only 1. Yesterday was kind of a disappointment. I know I could have stopped like at Yours Truly in Independence, but like that was a little early for me. I didn't want to do that. So I think I have a better plan in place for today. No coffee consumed along the trail. Again, kind of a bummer, but I think I'll have a better chance today just knowing a little bit more where I am and how things are spaced out. I did mention yesterday, how impressed I was with the progress that Akron has made, and I do feel like mentioning that I think they've done an excellent job beautifying alongside the trail, but now the next step, unfortunately, like there's only so much that the city itself can do. They need to get some commerce involved. They need to get some kind of incentive or motivator for businesses to participate, because for being as big of a city as they are, like I was really dying for a Gatorade and a meat stick, and I didn't want to go way far off trail, and unfortunately like that was my only option, so I didn't. They got to figure that out. I don't know what it is that they can do. That is one place where the Great Allegheny Passage really shines comparatively, and I understand that by virtue of how it's composed or its origin, with being alongside a river and an old rail bed, mostly the entirety of its path makes it a little bit easier to have like this seamless one trail experience and well-spaced towns, because that happened organically. But it is a bummer, the trail's really disjointed around Cleveland. There's a lot of jogging around. You can tell in places it was kind of like an afterthought, like, okay, I guess we'll accommodate this. And I'm hoping that the trail from here on, I'm pretty familiar with getting down to Columbus. I do have to take a detour this time, so I'm curious to see how the Olentangy Trail compares to the Alum Creek Trail in terms of, amenities trail side. I'm going to guess, just because of how developed Columbus and the suburbs are, that they'll be quite a bit accessible, but I could be wrong. Akron's a big town and there was nothing really trail side available. I'm going to get on this thing and see if I can survive a few hills. I've made it on the first itty-bitty little leg of my journey. Something I did want to point out, I'm actually following the Heartland Trail / Great American Rail Trail route. I live really close to where that route goes, and so I hopped on the beginning of the road section and took that path, and I almost didn't stop here, but I'm trying to remind myself that part of the idea of this trip is to take some time, take in the sights. I've got plenty of time to get to my destination. I need to take it easy and give myself a rest here and there. And while I'm at it, it's not a bad idea to show off, little local sites that I have an affection for. So here is what we always called the meat market growing up, Marshville Packing Company, and they have embraced the trail coming right by their store. They've got a sign, you can go in and get snacks. It really is a nice place to get a little treat. Just up the road is a diner that's been totally refurbished in the last year or two, Gigi's Diner. I really enjoy getting breakfast in there. Now, this morning, saved a little bit of money and treated myself to cocoa wheats instead. I always wonder when I eat those if I'm the only guy under 40 still eating cocoa wheats, but I like them. I passed, just a random musing here, I passed like a spray painted sign where some guy was decrying the practices of a certain business, and you see those here and there. And on the one hand, like, I respect your right to free speech and the idea that you don't want to let someone get away with something. You know, it's a principle of the matter. The other side of it, though, is I always do wonder, like, if they consider how many people are going to take that to heart. You know, like if I see a spray painted sign on your scrap piece of plywood, I'm not sure I'm going to consider that, you know, like a really valuable source of intel. Like, oh man, now I'm going to trust what that dude says. So I don't know, maybe other people have different opinions on it. I took my first trail, or my first hill climb. I live on this kind of like unique little piece of road where I'm on a knoll, but not really. So like there's these undulating hills on either side of me. They're very picturesque, lovely in a car, if not a little challenging if you have to back a trailer in. There's some blind spots. But it's a real drag because no matter which direction I take off out of my driveway, I'm going up a hill. So I got, I don't know, probably cumulative 60 feet of elevation down right like within a quarter mile of my house. So nice warm up to the day, and no cars have mown me over yet, so that's always a positive. So now I'm going to press on to Orville, get a little snack break. I've put down 10 miles so far in Orville in a lovely park. I'm trying to make myself take a break because I want to reapply some sunscreen. I forgot it yesterday. I'm a 90s kid and I tan really easily, so it wasn't a thing when I was younger. But you know, we know more than we knew back then, and skin cancer got Jimmy Buffett. And if there was ever an example of why it's important to use sunscreen, that man spent enough time in the sun to show us all that it's probably a good idea. Of course, probably some could say that maybe it's because of the amount of time. Maybe you'd be fine without it, but I don't know. Sunscreen, doctors tell you to use it, so I'm gonna throw some on. I got some kind of weird, like gross protein bar thing. That's not really my thing. I know some cyclists are huge into all that, like fancy, you know, refueling stuff. Not me. It's expensive and it's usually not too good. Actually, this one's like a mint chocolate. I think it's made by the Cliff Bar people, and it's better than I expected. But the way that I felt yesterday on my last leg of the trip, I figure I really need to intentionally make some stops along the way, fuel up, rest. But, you know, maybe it'll be easy. Like the old saying goes, if you can do something 10 times, you can do it 50 more times in terms of my miles, right? That's how that works. Yeah, it's been a nice ride so far. Getting from Marshallville to Orville is pretty easy. I am grateful for downhills. It was mostly downhill and flat, some small hills, nothing bad. It's a beautiful, beautiful pre-fall day. There's just like this, the first day of fall is Saturday. The sky is almost cloudless. There's like this smattering of clouds in places, just enough to provide a little bit of visual interest. But it's, you know, I don't even see any now. Out in the country, there was more. The miles go on quickly in the country. Getting around the city, there's so much stopping and going, and I know like that's an argument that some people make for and against living where I live. It takes 20 minutes to get anywhere, but I'm moving those entire 20 minutes. I can't stand sitting in traffic. So it's been nice. I've been able to just keep the steady pace. I mentioned earlier, I'm following the Rails to Trails, the Wayne County Rails to Trails and the Great American Rail to Trail path for the Heartland Trail and the GART, Great American Rail Trail. I'm doing that because of where I live, but doing it this way, I'm not going down into Canal Fulton and Massillon and over to Dalton. Canal Fulton is probably one of my favorite trail towns in the world. It's just quaint and picturesque and just like a prime example of what you want out of a trail town. It's always crawling with bikes and pedestrians, and it's got little shops. It's very walkable. It's cute. So it's a shame I'm not showing it off, but it's out there a gazillion times if you want to look for it. The path I'm taking, though, there isn't really a good online resource that I have found for it. So I went ahead and used like a make my Google Maps thing, and I'm going to link it in the comments. Something I've always wanted to say. So I'll throw that up so you can see what that path is, and I took pictures of the signpost. It's well marked, but I just can't find an online resource for it. I'm a huge supporter of Wayne County Rails to Trails. It's my home base, Rails to Trails. Not a financial supporter as much as I want to, but I'm definitely a proponent, and I make sure to get very vocal about that. Sticking with the concept of showing off things that are important to me, I'm coming up the bike route here, the official Heartland Trail, Great American Rail Trail route, and up here I'm going to show off Orville's trailhead. So there's the old railroad depot. There is the founder's house. Judge Smith Orr, Orville's namesake, lived right there back in the 1860s. That's a neat place. It's Orville's Historical Museum. You can tour it. And we're going to come up here. They've got a little bit of brick road left. Kind of gives you some of that historical flavor without being annoying. When I was a kid, most of Market Street were these bricks, but they covered up more and more as time has passed. And I kind of like the idea that they've kept just a smidgen of them left right in front of the historical home. But we got our Railroad Heritage Society. You can tour that. There's a little museum in there. You can see the old depot and ticket station. And then Rails to Trails did such a wonderful job here putting in this trailhead. It's a lovely resource. They have, I think, some big designs of making Orville a trail town as much as they are able to. I don't know, without having a through trail down to the next town, it's a little rough. You box out a segment of the biking population, but they've done a great job with what they are working with. So yeah, I'm trying to remind myself I'm staying in the spirit of taking the time to show off things that are neat, interesting, or important to me, and this kind of checks all those boxes. There's that's right. There's just a little pathway into Orville's downtown. You got Market Street, and then over there, like just beyond all these buildings, is Route 57 Main Street. There's a wonderful mural there on the side of one of our old buildings, and I got to tell you, I know I was born here, so I have some bias, but I was born here. There's a hospital in a town of 8,000, and it actually still delivers babies, and that's kind of a rarity now in these rural hospitals. It's very expensive. There's a lot of insurance considerations that they have to worry about, and Orville has managed to preserve that ability, and it's the headquarters for Smuckers. That's the big one everyone knows of. But you can see Bessie, they're the cow up on the roof for Smith Dairy, and that's another wonderful Orville business. And there are many worse places that you could put down roots. So if you're passing through, take a minute, pop in over there. You can get a coffee in between the brick building and the red-faced building. There's a little restaurant there. You can see Jerry's restaurant. Dravenstadt's restaurant is kind of a hit to some. So there's plenty to see. Take some time, stop, appreciate the town, spend a few dollars here. We have a really nice grocery store too. There's a Bueller's. It has its own little coffee shop inside also. So there's my little argument for Orville. As advertised, I'm trying to impart some local flavor to my trip here. This big barn, this monolith on the landscape, I was told as a kid was the biggest timber frame barn in the county. I don't know if it still holds that distinction, but when you get past it on a bicycle, moving at the lack of speed I am, you really get an appreciation for the scale, and not this white one here. That's just a little machine shed. Good size, but not like this. So this big old barn back here supposedly was built, designed in mind so that you could turn around a team of working, and this is the part I'm going to get wrong, like mules or horses or something attached to like maybe a thresher. I don't know, but it's impressive, and it's just one of those neat little scenes that you might otherwise cycle right past and give little thought to. I know that this has been showcased a number of times, but just in case you haven't seen it, along the Appalachian Trail, they call it trail magic. People will leave things for thru hikers. And here at the Millbourne, I think it's Millbourne Fire Training Center, Fire and Rescue Training, they put out some water. Just help yourself. And I think that's such a nice gesture and, you know, a good show of support for the trail. And since I feel compelled to share almost every thought that comes through my head, and because I am equal parts dad and dork, I saw two interesting signs I wanted to mention. One was sort of like spray painted on a dilapidated garage. "It's a boy." And my first thought was, I didn't know garages had a gender. I wonder how they tell. And I know that's terrible. And then I also saw a no turn around sign in someone's driveway, but the T had fallen off, so it said no urn around. And I thought, man, they're gonna be in big trouble if somebody gets cremated. So that's really all I had. The other thing, these 2-lane country roads are really, they're sort of like, not my bread and butter, but definitely like what I grew up doing. This is just like what I rode for years as a kid, so it's nice to have that under my belt. And the traffic has been scant, if not super fast when they do go by, but I sort of console myself with this idea that everyone driving down here at least is familiar or knows to watch out for Amish buggies and bikes around every turn, because you know, the Amish, if they're not in a buggy, they're on a bike. So unless you've got a tourist or just a really thoughtless local, you can rest assured people are going to be on the lookout for bicycles. I do like, though, I think doing this on a weekday is really the ticket if that's available to you. It's just me and a bunch of retired people, and I think that really drives home the idea I've had my entire life. I am perfectly cut out to be a retired guy. So hasn't happened yet, but I'm trying to make my way there. Okay, I will see you in Apple Creek. I have made it to the deceptively named Apple Creek, where I have seen neither apple nor creek. They have a really nice little park here off of Millbourne Road, and finding my way along has been awesome. And it's not just because, as I acknowledged before, I'm a huge Wayne County Rails to Trails supporter, but objectively, Wayne County Rails to Trails did an awesome job providing signage along the way. There hasn't been one missed sign. Now, my wife took me for a tour here a few weeks back, and we got a picture of each signpost just to make sure that I could find my way, but not necessary. The signing has been awesome. I wish Wayne County Rails to Trails would have taken on signing the entire route, because maybe it'd be a little easier to navigate Cleveland and Columbus that way. There's a lovely, fresh-looking pavilion here, and if I'm looking at this right, yeah, they have some crazy electrical service going on. I'm going to guess that they know their demographic. You know, there's a lot of Amish down here. E-bikes are super popular among them, and so, but almost every post has a charging plug available, as well as different configurations. So that's pretty cool. I'm actually feeling pretty good for 20 miles in, a lot better than I thought I would be. And I think now it's time to go face my big challenge for the day, the challenge that's going to separate those who took their conditioning seriously from those who sort of phoned it in. And like my man Cody Jinks likes to say, I'm somewhere in the middle. There it is, Cutter Road Hill. It looks like it should end, and it just doesn't. Keeps going and going. But you can see some cyclists coming down, and I've actually seen a handful of other cyclists today, and I kind of particularly enjoy it because, like, they're my people. Not just because they're out here enjoying a hobby that I like, but because nothing bonds people like shared trauma. The legends are true. Cutter Hill, my Mount Everest. But it's only like 240 some feet instead of like 19,000, and there were no Sherpas involved. Didn't see a single one. But I took it down, and you know, gravity, as a naturally clumsy person, gravity has been my enemy since birth. So it felt good to take it down a peg, and I did it. I conquered my adversary, my foe, my nemesis. And the reward is actually pretty darn nice. There's a huge sense of satisfaction with it, and the views are unbeatable. And you know, there's a lovely little sunflower field here. I'm sure my perception of the day is now colored by the fact that, you know, I took on my most feared challenge, but it is just a lovely day. I can't get over how nice it is. You couldn't ask for better weather. The views are spectacular. All the colors pop. The corn is drying down nicely. The soybean has that lovely, like, yellow rusted color. Lets you know fall is on its way, but it's still plenty warm. It's actually a touch warmer than I'd care for, but not oppressively so. But I took the hill down, and I did it with second-tier electrolytes. You know, Powerade, they wanted me to believe that they have superior electrolytes, but I'm no fool. I know who the market leader is, but I also like to save a buck. So I went with the Powerade, and I figured I could go either way. I could give them a plug or blame my failure on their product. But I think they've earned it. I'm going to say go chug a Powerade and take on Cutter Roads Hill. So now I'm continuing to Fredericksburg, where I intend to enjoy a slice of Lem's Pizza. There's a kind of, this is the Fredericksburg school, and there's a kind of appreciation for architecture illustrated there that you don't have anymore. And I understand there's a lot of flourish, and there's a lot of expense associated with flourish. I fully get why there isn't such a movement to put those types of touches on public spaces anymore, but man, that's just a relic of a day gone by, and so many of those elementary schools are just torn down and long forgotten, and it's nice to see one not only still standing, but you know, actually being utilized. So now we're onto the Holmes County Trail, and comparatively, compared to the 2-lane trial I was up against earlier, this is a cakewalk. I really enjoy the Holmes County Trail, but my wife, she likes skipping this part from Fredericksburg to Holmesville because we're gonna get a little bit of shade up here again, but pretty soon it just opens up into these barren flats, and it's just a wind tunnel. And to be honest, I never really paid attention. I think I'm going mostly south, but for whatever reason the wind just whips up through here, and it's hot, and you're exposed, and you're pedaling against that breeze, and I get it. Like, she's got due cause to dislike that portion, but it's worth doing anyway, I think. And then once you get past Holmesville, it is pretty scenic and pretty. I know, very difficult to make the case that this isn't scenic and pretty, but pretty soon it opens up into just, you're out in the middle of a field, basically. What else? Oh, another funny thing I saw back in, I think, was it around Fredericksburg? Yeah, just outside of Fredericksburg, that kind of amused me. There was this sign for a school board guy, and it was for Brian Miller, and this is an Amish country joke. Not all of you are going to get this, but I thought, man, how would they know which one? So now I'm on my way down to Jitter's Coffee Shop. It's trail adjacent-ish, I'll call it. the trail opens up into like a little plaza, the Walmart plaza there, and you have to cross 83, but there's a stoplight right where you have to cross, so it's really not too terrifying. And if there are a couple of things that the Amish know how to do right, boy, it is baked goods and landscaping. I'm a group building in there too, so you see some impressive homes down here, some meticulously kept lawns, and grab a hold of an Amish baked good if you can. Just passed through Holmesville. There is a very small little road section, well marked. It's a sleepy little town, but cute. And sleepy, I'd say, in a good way, you know. Sometimes exciting doesn't necessarily mean good. Saw another couple of snakes on the trail, and yeah, I'm not one of those guys who wants to kill them. Like, I felt really bad hitting the one yesterday, but I do wish that I would not see them. So I think we need to find an arrangement where they stay hidden in the grass and away from me. One thing I did want to point out that's kind of cool. I've read somewhere that this is considered to be, or maybe is, the only dual-use trail system in the country, I believe, for bicycles and buggies. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what I've read. And then I also wanted to mention from earlier, get lost once. A very, very small misdirection, but I'd be remiss not to include it. There's a place on the road in between Apple Creek and Fredericksburg where there are like 2 different bike paths. There is apparently some sort of like a prescribed bike path. I don't know for every county, but at least for Wayne County. And so there was signage for bike route 85 down somewhere around like Carr Road and Graber Road. Bike route 1 signs were, and I got mixed up and chose the wrong one. And I am glad that we went and pre-checked that, because I don't know how long I would have gone on it otherwise, because I was definitely wrong. So that's all I got. Fall is upon us. First official day of autumn is Saturday, and the signs are right here. This is a pretty popular spot. There are plugs down in that pavilion where people will charge their e-bikes sometimes, and there's a nice big field here. And when we come through with the kids, there's a playground just past this hip station where they play. And it's really neat to see these old preserved depots where you can imagine people getting on passenger trains back in the day. I love that trains and canal mules can't handle grade, because all I can think about on this stretch is just how nice it is, how easy it is to achieve a pace that I really had to fight to earn on the road. And the only other observation from this stretch is all the leaf litter from the fall. Snakes have fantastic camouflage that protects them from predators and lets them sneak up on prey, but man, all I can think about is, I hope there's not a snake in there. So they blend in too well. Upsets me. I am just outside of Jitter's Coffee House here in Millersburg, and topped off myself with a delicious pumpkin vanilla situation. There's no shame in that game. I am a pumpkin man through and through. And also topped off my electronic devices courtesy of the thoughtfully provided outlets at every table. And I interrupted myself back there, but I felt kind of sheepish discussing someone else's culture with them around. Anyway, if you're unaware, which, I mean, you probably are aware if you have done any kind of research on the area, or if you are from here, there's a really, really heavy Amish presence down in Holmes County. Measures vary, and there are differing opinions on whether or not this is the highest concentration in the United States, but the claim has been made. And so I was going to say, I got a picture earlier of the hitching post at the Walmart, and it was always amusing to me when I was younger people would come from Cleveland or even farther away to like take in the Amish community like as a tourist attraction, and I grew up around it, so it wasn't really that novel to me. My dad picked up milk as a milk hauler and went down to Amish farms, and I got to ride along as a kid. And even when I lived in town in Orville for almost a decade, we had Amish buggies go by frequently because they would go down to Ace Hardware or Bueller's. It's kind of amusing to me. Now we live way out in the country, but we're up in hill country, and there's not really anything that the Amish need to come fetch, so they don't. I've only seen one buggy in the 5 years we've been there, compared to, regularly in Orville. So, but I love the comfort and the familiarity of this kind of community, and so I did get the trademark hitching post at the Walmart picture just to show it off. And yeah, when I was growing up at Bueller's in Orville, it was not uncommon to see buggies hitched up, and I'm just old enough to remember before Worcester in Wayne County had a Walmart, and as far as I can recollect, that's always had a hitching post too. So, obviously Millersburg has got a higher concentration, but it's not like I haven't seen them. I have, getting back onto my trip here, I mapped it out, 23 miles to go, I believe. And from this point forward, it's kind of bland. I've been down to Kilbuck, I think like only once, because truthfully there isn't really a whole lot beyond Millersburg. Like the Millersburg to Kilbuck section is pretty and everything. It's pretty in its own right, but there's not really a whole lot to see or do. I think Kilbuck may have had like an IGA grocery store at one time, and cost of progress and all that. I think it's closed now, which means they probably have a Dollar General like every small community, but not really a whole lot in terms of amenity or service. And I'll backtrack. I do want to give a huge shout out to the Jitters Coffee House, though, because not only is the staff friendly and pleasant, and my drink was wonderful, but they've got charging stations at every table, and the restrooms are clean and well taken care of, and the faucet was high enough to fill my water bottle. So I'm gonna call that one a definite win, and that is a little bit of local knowledge that I can share, because I don't think it's necessarily well advertised from the trail, so you kind of have to know it's there, or, Google Map or whatever. But I will recommend, if you're coming through on the Holmes County Trail, make sure to pop over, hit Jitters Coffee Shop. All right, well, see ya probably in Glenmont. I'll check in again. I have made it to Glenmont. So first, I want to give my impressions of the portion of the trail from Millersburg to Kilbuck. It was kind of like I had recalled. It was just, it wasn't bad, but it was a whole lot of the same. Were I Samuel L. Jackson in a made-for-TV version of a certain movie, I would say I am so Monday, Friday sick of these muffin flipping snakes on this muffin flipping trail. They're friggin' everywhere, and it's hard to take in the scenery when I'm worried about mowing the little guys over, because both I don't want to hurt them, and because it's super, super icky, and that feeling will stick with me forever. Beyond Kilbuck, however, so Kilbuck was kind of like a forgettable town. Not really memorable, but not bad. There were some neat and tidy houses, but it didn't really have a whole lot going on. Beyond that, I have always been a defender of the country. I don't like when people pick on it. However, State Route 520. It strikes me as a road from nowhere to nowhere. It's the worst. It's pretty well soulless. There are a couple of neat views, like farm views, but a lot of swamp. It is exposed in every sense of the word. You have a lot of sun exposure. There isn't a whole lot of shade, and where there is shade, you can't really enjoy it because there's no shoulder and tons of blind curves, and it's a 55-mile-an-hour road. Now, thankfully, every vehicle I saw seemed to be incredibly conscious of the fact that there's a lot of bicycles. They've signed the heck out of it, share the road, and bikes will use full lane and all that kind of stuff. So they really do try to advertise that, like, watch out, this is bike territory. But it's hard to get to feel at ease. And then it's like the road goes on forever. And there's nothing else. It's just on and on and on. It is a soul-sucking 7 miles, and for that reason alone, I think that Glenmont is probably the most beloved trail town along the entire, if you're going north to south, along the entire trip, because it means an end to that. What else am I thinking about Glenmont? I've only been down here once. They paved this section that I'm going to be heading into, Glenmont to Brinkhaven, years back, and I was excited to come try it. And there's a really steep climb and a really steep downhill then that you get. It was Keith Workman is the founder of Wayne County Rails to Trails, and I believe it was him who I heard the story from, that they called that really steep grade Bado Pass, as in kind of like a slang way of saying bad old. The bad old pass. It kind of was shrunk down to Bado. It's the Bado Pass because it was wicked for trains. And I wanted to go check it out one time, and this hill right here, so I've only ridden it once ever, but when I did, I took 2 of my daughters, 2 or 3, I can't remember, and there were a whole bunch of chickens on this hill, and I will forever remember Glenmont and the beginning of the trail at Glenmont as Chicken Hill. Completely unrelated, I also saw, those like flailing arm things that you see at car dealerships? They had one outside of Jitter's coffee shop, and I will always think of those as Gary's, because my daughter, she's 9 now, but when she was 2, we saw one of those. We drove by one time, and she said, "Who that? He Gary." And she meant scary, but so I saw Gary today, and I saw Chicken Hill, so I'm really having a heck of a time. This isn't particularly nice, but I had one other thought that I couldn't help but share. When I was going through Glenmont, and again, I recognize that it is 3:30 on a weekday, so maybe not the most active time for any town. I could not shake the feeling that it is like a ghost town that didn't get the memo. And in a town so quiet. I mean, my town, Marshallville, 700 people, I get it, that's itty bitty. I don't know what the population is of Glenmont, but man, it's just, yeah, very, very eerily silent. I am still climbing the pass, and it is as advertised and as remembered. It's a bit of a grade, but it was still created to be navigable by railroad engines, so it's manageable. Oh, and that's one thing I will give 520 is, for everything that sucked about it, the grades were pretty manageable. Nothing like Amish country. There were a few that were tough, but manageable. And trying to give Glenmont its due, they did, I mentioned earlier, how sad it is that so many communities have torn down these iconic school buildings. Now, I don't, the time I tried to come here with my daughters, I got turned around. I had a really difficult time finding this trailhead. And so we wound up at their old school. And same fate as everybody else. They had to consolidate and closed down those little satellite elementaries. And they saved their school, though, the community did. And they've repurposed it into a community center, and that's beautiful there. And they use it, so good for them. As far as this pass, I just showed you that beautiful view back there. It's pretty easy to connect the dots when you're coming into Glenmont on 520. You have the end of 520, but boy, it is flanked, the town is flanked by some prominent ridges, and it doesn't take too long to figure out you're gonna have to wind up climbing one of those things. And here we are in the climb. The other thing I wanted to mention, because I've seen another snake since I've gone by, is I would just like to see something cool. Like, give me a mammal. Give me like an otter or a beaver or a fox, or like even something you wouldn't expect. Like, I'll take an antelope, you know, an Ohio antelope. I don't think they exist, but I want to be the first one to see one. Give me Bigfoot, you know, something that is not going to wind up under my tire. Now, with that said, this trip that I took the first time was the only time I believe I have ever seen it, and I'm only like 75% positive. I think I saw a badger. It was carrying something floppy in its mouth, like it had, you know, killed something, like a little rabbit or a squirrel or something. And it looked at me and then ducked away really quickly into, like, along the trail here, there was like a little burrow under a log. And I thought it at first was a raccoon, and I thought, that's strange. It's out during the day. And then just as strange, it had a stripe on its face. Oh, there, that's a kitty cat. There, I'll take you, kitty cat. You're staying out of my way. That's a mammal. But anyway, the badger that I think I saw, what stood out was a stripe on its face. So I Googled, you know, does Ohio have badgers? And I believe we're down in Knox County now, or if we're on Holmes County soil still, we're on the border. And they are rare, and there aren't a whole lot of documented sightings because they are an elusive animal. But there are Ohio badgers. So, yeah, I'd love to see another badger. Oh, there went a frog. Yeah, that's cool. That frog hopped away. These snakes need to get the memo. Get off the stinking trail. Know why I was so casual earlier about the climb? Because I forgot about the final push. They really make you work for it. It's moderately graded the whole way, and then there's a road here you gotta cross, and boy, it's steep as a son of a gun, right, leading right up to the road there. And at least you do get some scenery, though, that kind of gives you a payoff. It's way better than that 520 bull crap. And I'll take a trail over a road any day. But yeah, completely forgot about that. So brace yourself. If you go north to south, you've got that coming. I've already made it up to the Bridge of Dreams. This is, if I recall, the second longest covered bridge in the state. I think the longest one is up by Ashtabula. And originally, this is where I intended to camp, but then I saw some chatter online that said that camping had been removed when there was a storm, took something out or something else. And then I came down and rode the Kokosing since then and found that the Danville had installed like a small primitive camping site. And to be honest, this is a little bit more desolate than I think I was prepared for anyway. I mean, you can hear some traffic right now, but boy, at night, you are away from it all, and there is absolutely an appeal to that. I live in a pretty quiet place, but I live in a quiet place with electricity, and like, I have like 6 neighbors. Not a subdivision, but at least, you know, you're not alone. I just felt kind of defenseless and vulnerable. So as silly as that probably is, I'll be happy to camp in Danville tonight. I have made it to my home sweet home for the night. I I'm not 100% sure. I feel like I'm shorted on stakes on this tent. And I didn't mention this earlier too when I was talking about my gear, but this is a one-person backpacking tent. So it is important to try to seek out specifically a backpacking tent because they're made to be light, portable, supposed to be simplistic, but maybe for people more practiced than me, I don't know. But I have my little air mattress. Well, air mattress would be a very kind way to word it. My little inflated sleeping pad in here, and there's a fire ring, but I don't have any intention of using that. The pieces they left are huge, and it's nice that they did it, but I'm not going to use them. There is no electricity here, but there's a nice little bike fix it in a pavilion, and there is water too, which is fantastic. Porta-john, but hey, you get what you get. And I think today was my longest ride ever. It was like 64 miles and change. It's pretty substantial. I'll have to find the exact number later, but the name of the game was elevation. I think that scientists are going to have to check out what's going on in this state, because based upon the climbing I did, I think I actually reached the highest point in Ohio like 6 times, which I don't think is possible. I think there's only one. Joking aside, I feel accomplished. I feel a little worn out. Thankfully, the heat is keeping the mosquitoes at bay for now, but I have a feeling as soon as it starts to get cool, they're going to get nuts. So I think it's time for me to get my sleeping bag in here, wash up with my baby wipes, and go find some food.